Hi there, Carlos. Let's take a look and see what you did in this new set of essays, okay? All right, so it's about weddings, spending a lot of money on them. Here's what you said. Lavish wedding parties have grown in importance over the last few years. In my opinion, spending a larger measure of money in this kind you spend money on something. On this kind of celebration is bringing more drawbacks than benefits. This essay will discuss the advantages and disadvantages of this phenomenon, giving examples to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, fine. To begin with, few argue that a special event needs to be celebrated grandly, as it only happens once in life. For instance, in India, wedding celebrations are one of the most important events in life, and parents do not mind spending much of their hard-earned money on children's weddings. As a matter of fact, they usually begin to save money when, not since, when a girl is born. Moreover, the bride, with a B, not pride, it's a different word. The bride and groom are most likely to want to remember this day until their last breath. Thus, they do not hesitate on spending on the wedding. All right, now let's talk about this paragraph a little bit. I feel like you have essentially explained to me why people spend money. So this is more about the reasons for spending. But you're not really telling me in this paragraph how any of this is beneficial. What kind of benefits does it bring? So I'm not really clear on that based on the way you wrote this, okay? I feel like you're answering a different question. All right, let's take a look at the second paragraph. However, it should not be forgotten that, okay, careful with your syntax here. It should not be forgotten that a huge problem occurs, or it should not be forgotten that there is a huge problem when the couple opts for weddings that they cannot afford. Sometimes, all right, you should have had a semicolon here. Sometimes they, because it's weddings, are financed by a loan, which definitely will be overwhelmingly detrimental for the finances of the new couple. For example, after a wedding celebration, the just married couple usually goes to live together, which implies new expenses, get rid of to have, new expenses in order to have decent accommodation. Furthermore, luxury weddings are not really important when the goal is joining the couple to share common pleasant situations. All right, so for me, Carlos, this is really underdeveloped. There was more to say, and you didn't really support some of your statements well enough as far as I'm concerned. So what do I mean? So you're telling me that it will be overwhelmingly detrimental for the couple, okay? And then they have to have new expenses. All right, so what's your point? They have to have new expenses, or they will have new expenses. So in other words, you need to just go one step further and say that since their new life already has expenses, adding to those a very expensive wedding celebration could potentially lead new couples into a great amount of financial hardship. Okay, so you really needed to take your discussion a step further. Okay, and then that's not a drawback. That's just your judgment call. You said, furthermore, they're not important when your goal is to join a couple. That's not a it's not a drawback. All right, this is just your personal opinion about weddings. So what you really needed here was an additional drawback. Okay, another problem, another disadvantage of spending a lot of money. The same thing goes here. Okay, now I told you basically that the whole thing felt like reasons to me, but you needed to provide the benefits of what happens when people spend a lot of money and the drawbacks of what happens when people spend a lot of money on their weddings. All right, so while you talked about a drawback, it certainly wasn't supported well enough. In conclusion, from the arguments and examples given above, I firmly believe that benefits do not overtake as awkward. It's outweigh the disadvantages. In the future, if a couple about to get married realizes that there is no need to spend a large quantity of money on a celebration, they will have a much better, they will have a better economy. They're not a country. Countries have economies. So you want to say they will have better finances at the beginning of their new life. Okay, so some awkwardness with the words there as well. But for me, the biggest problem with this essay is your task achievement. It just wasn't developed appropriately and wasn't developed as fully as it should have been. Let's take a look at your pie charts. Okay, the pie charts show favorite subjects at a school in New South Wales. The first of them in 2014. The second pie chart is in 2017. As it is illustrated, not the most favorite, just the favorite subject. That's superfluous here, okay? So the favorite subject in 2014 was geography, accounting for 27.7 of the total of the pie chart. It was followed by maths, which had 27.3 of students' preferences. The least popular is the right word here in this year were PE, IT, and history, which altogether hardly received 12% of the percentages. Okay, let's see. I think you probably could have said a little more about that. I mean, you kind of lumped all three of them together, even though these two were really very similar and this one wasn't really. So you could have said something a little more telling rather than they didn't really equal 12%. You could have said that while together, what could you have said here? History and IT accounted for approximately 2.5%. PE was roughly 4 times more than that. That was a little more telling, a little more information there. Okay. Within a time span of 3 years, preferences changed significantly changed. In 2017, the favorite subject, or the most popular, you could have said. The most popular subject was biology, and the next one, or how about followed by physics? IT and PE subjects, no comma, no they, were amongst the least preferred, reaching 1.4 and 3.2 respectively. All right, so, and then the rest here is an overview. I'll look at the overview. So far, of these 7 subjects, you've only talked about 4 of them, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's see what else you said. Overall, we can clearly compare how preferences changed. In 2014, maths and geography accounted for more than half of the total pie chart, whereas in 2017, they were preferred by roughly 29%. Regarding history, it surprisingly rocketed its preference in more than 12 times. Okay, that grammatically is wrong. It surprisingly rocketed more than 10 times over the 3 years. That's what you want to say. That's not an overview. So yes, preferences changed. That's true. But this is just it's too detailed. It doesn't read any differently than a detail paragraph. So your overview here needed to be something else. You could have said a lot of things. You could have said that the most popular subjects changed. The most popular and the least popular subjects changed dramatically over the 3 years. You could have been a little more specific that while X was the most popular subject in 2014, it was overtaken by Y in 2017. So there were tons of things you could have said. What has to be said, though, is something that's more of a general trend, the most obvious thing, something. Now, let's talk about what the other problem here is. So your overview is really not an overview, okay? The other problem is that you've left out a ton of information. You had here 8 subjects. Here you had 7 subjects. Reading your description, if I didn't have this pie chart in front of me, I would have no idea what all of the subjects were, okay? You left out chemistry. Did you not? Or did you? Let me see. Yeah, you left it out. Let me double check. Yeah, and look at that. Like, you had talked about the 3 least popular subjects. It wasn't even PE. It was actually chemistry, IT, and history. So I don't even know why you put PE there. It's inaccurate. You should have talked about those 3 that were all around 1%. Okay? So what happens is when you leave out some of the categories, you're actually leaving out what an examiner would consider key information, and that's really going to cost you in terms of your task achievement. All you need to do is look at the band descriptors for task 1. They're all over the internet. You can find them, and you can see that this will really create a problem for you. Okay? So again, you've left out key information. You've left out what I consider to be an appropriate overview. This really reads like a detailed paragraph to me. Okay? So it does need some work. Okay? Go ahead and try to correct them. Return them back to us corrected. Add to your error correction list, and let's see what you write next time. Okay? Good luck.